Okay, on the show today, sport and exercise scientist Dr. Mike Israetel. Lots to say. I have spent an unreasonable amount of time listening to this man and frankly looking at his body too, which is a bit strange to meet him in person. I actually feel a bit nervous, which is unusual for me. He founded Renaissance Periodization. I think he gives out some of the most scientific information about strength training, diet on the internet. Personally owes me money because none of my clothes fit. I've been following his advice for 3 years, and now I get objectified by the middle-aged female members of my staff team, and none of my seats fit anymore. So, abuser of butlers, owner of Lambos, Dabro Pajalovic.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
How much drugs are you on today? What's your mental state?
Low drugs, good mental state.
Okay, that's good to hear. I've seen a few interviews of you lately where you're a bit worse for wear. So, on the recovery, yeah.
Guess, yeah.
Good, good. Let's hear about your life story. We have women who listen to this. They like that kind of stuff. So, how did you get into what you do now?
Um, Family moved from Russia when I was 7 in 1991 to the United States, and I went to high school in the United States, or sorry, all of my schooling pretty much in the United States. In high school, I got involved in wrestling, and so that was kind of a cool introduction to combat sport in general. And then I went to school at the University of Michigan to get my undergrad. I got that in kinesiology, which is, kind of the study of movement, and technically mine is a movement science, which is a subcategory of that. I went and got a master's degree in strength and conditioning, exercise science at Appalachian State University. During my late undergrad and early grad school career, I was a competitive powerlifter. So I got a lot of cool experience doing that. Coached some people. And then I went and trained people with my co-founder of RP, Mr. Nick Shaw, in New York City. So we got to train super highfalutin types in Manhattan. See? Yeah, see? It was the 1920s that this happened. There was a time machine
Makes
involved.
sense.
And then after that, I did that for about a year, and I decided I didn't know enough. So I went and got my PhD in sport physiology at East Tennessee State University. There, I became Dr. Mike. I started there training more seriously for hypertrophy training. I got out, became a professor, was a professor for a while, started RP, wrote a bunch of books, created a bunch of apps. And now we have this big YouTube channel in which we provide tons of information to folks. And this entire time, I've been training and competing in bodybuilding. And actually, just after I got out of my PhD program, I got into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So now it's like my 10th year or something of that, 11th. And so now I do bodybuilding, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I specialize in taking folks that want to have more muscle, less fat, more strength, and more health, and giving them the tools with which to do those things, should they have the scheduling ability and the dedication necessary to accomplish them. On the margins, I'm not just trying to make everyone look like a competitive bodybuilder with veins coming out of their face, but if you want just a little bit more muscle or some combination of that and significantly less fat, then RP is the place to go. And I'm kind of the guy in RP that does a lot of the kind of grand theoretical development and advice giving. So hopefully that's a decent life story that looks more like a CV than a life story. But let me know if I can
That's
follow up on
great.
any of that.
We'll dig into a few things. I mean, first of all, a genuine thank you for me. Like I wasn't joking when I said I've had to replace all my clothes. I've just lost 15 kilos with, your weight advice and others. And I was in the gym with a pretty high-end PT who's a mate of mine at the weekend. And he was looking at my technique and saying, "You're not too bad for an amateur." He says,
Mm.
"How do you know all this stuff?" And I just said, "Dr. Mike." Well,
Oh,
I've
jeez.
watched about 1,000 videos, and like he's like, "Well, I can give you a few little hints, but this is not much I can tell you because you've
That's
got
awesome.
a technique." And that's all just from watching your videos, which I've been, over the last 3 years watching around the world. So yeah, genuinely, thank you.
Well, it's my sincere pleasure. I'm super, super happy folks like you are getting something out of the blathering that I do on the internet.
And also, you are the funniest person in strength training. Like, you seem to have this niche for combining like fun, irreverent humor with genuinely useful scientific information. I think that combo is just killer.
Thank you so much. I was really trying to hone in on reverent humor, but that was unavailable as a humor category.
Yeah, yeah, I can't imagine that's would have come
Humor
naturally.
with respect.
Yeah. A lot of people listen to this do dance, they do yoga, they do martial arts of, of all kinds. Why might they want to do weightlifting in addition to those things or strength training?
Yeah, they're essentially sort of there are multiple categories of understanding on which we could really justify including weight training into your program. I'll go through a few of them, a few of the ones that make the biggest difference, and I'm certainly leaving out some of them that make, I think, in my estimate, smaller differences. So one thing is, whatever it is you do, if you got your muscles significantly stronger, which is something that occurs with weight training, and if you change nothing about your nutrition functionally, and you don't change your body weight at all during the time that you begin to weight train, because you're going to be building a lot of muscle, and because your body is only made of so many finite parts, it's not going to be able to hold on to as many fat stores as it used to. And so, generally, people that start lifting weights but control their dieting and their body weight such that it stays relatively similar, pretty close to the same, they end up gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time. And this can occur on weeks and months of scale. Anytime you gain muscle and lose fat, almost anything that you do with your physical body will become easier to do at any given level of intensity or skill or effort. And you'll be able to climb higher into intensities and skills and efforts that you didn't before find yourself able to do. Your endurance will increase, your power production will increase, and your ability to hold really, really positions in yoga that to you prior to that would have been like, man, I can't stay in that for very long. When you have less fat and more muscle, even yoga, it becomes something you're just better at. Dancing, you name it. So that's a big category, just doing your thing better. So even if you looking at it only from, well, I really just have one involvement in my life physically, and that's yoga. The weight training is now justifiable exclusively to make you better at yoga, even if you don't care about the weight training in and of itself. So that's a big deal. Another big deal is that weight training and making yourself strong through a very large range of motion, especially at the extremes of a range of motion, you become much less likely to get hurt, either in wear and tear over time or acutely in any one dance move that goes south when it should have went north. That injury reduction ability of weight training, basically you could look at weight training as the strengthening of your body. And you need your body to dance or to do yoga or to do anything else that you do with it. And if your body's overall stronger and more resilient from experiencing much higher forces at much more awkward positions than you would really characteristically enter in through your own involvements physically, at least at the frequency that we're talking about. Let's say you have a dance step that goes south once every 25 dance steps, and your knee shoots way over your toe, and that doesn't feel so good. If you're weight training in a typical workout, you may do 25, 30, 40 steps on purpose like that with weight on your hands in a deep lunge. And then after you've been exposed to that position so many times, it's just really difficult to feel awkward in any position in which your body's put because you're always training your body at the extreme ends with a lot of force, with a high proximity to failure. I mean, you're really challenging yourself. That inoculates you from a really degree of injury, wear and tear, you name it. So it's really awesome. So if you like doing dance, if you like doing yoga, you can do them in a more uninterrupted fashion for longer and honestly do them with a bit more mental freedom because you no longer feel like, ooh, I want to do this move in dance, but like, I don't want to get hurt. Well, if you resistance train and you gain muscle and lose fat and become stronger and more resilient in your joints, you can kind of be like, I'm going to try this because I'm probably not going to get hurt. And you're probably correct. So that resiliency is a big deal. And the third big thing that has, I think, a big advantage, and we have to talk about with some amount of nuance, perhaps some amount of care. There are many caveats to make to this, but gaining muscle and losing fat in most cases improves your self-assessed aesthetics. You just like your body better. And notice I said self-assessed. So we're not even dealing with, oh, but it's societal expectation and all those other things. I'm very well qualified to talk about all that. We could open up that can of worms if you like. But just for your own purposes of looking in the mirror, looking in the dance studio mirror, showering by yourself, you're going to look down and be like, yeah, I mess with that. And then if you are female or male, I guess, but not like me, male, and you actually care about how you look in public, there we will experience a thing where if you lose a decent amount of fat and gain a decent amount of muscle, you will simply look better in every single one of your pieces of clothing. And that's nice. You know, there's a difference between going to the store and having to kind of move your shirt all the time to make sure your gut isn't protruding, to just going to the store and sort of leaning over the peaches to grab a peach that you like, and your midriff is exposed, and you're like, you know what? Who? If someone sees this, they're going to have a hell of a show because I look good and I feel good. And that sort of aesthetic thing, though in elements of our culture, we try to poo poo it. We try to guilt trip ourselves for feeling a bit of egoism, perhaps a bit of vanity. You could paint it as such. There's also a lot to be said for actually liking the body that you occupy. And we can illustrate this from the opposite extreme. What if you had all of your same skills, all of your same income, all of your same approval from friends, all of the same people are attracted to you or repulsed by you as always, but you have to carry 80 pounds more body fat around in your midsection? How many people would honestly sign on the dotted line for that form? Versus how many people, if it was just a matter of signing, would say, you know what, give me a six pack kind of all the time, and I'm just going to live like that. I mean, most people will sign it, and there are very good reasons that don't have to do with anything toxic, like a vanity that consumes all of you, that
Well,
are really, really convincing. So those three things: get better at your sport, reduce injury probability in your sport, and also, or in your physical involvements, hobby sports, whatever you want to call them, and also just look better, period, for looking better.
yeah, certainly aesthetics is a thing, and people who deny that, I think, are denying reality. I know my girlfriend likes, my muscles, as it were, but I remember years ago, a Colombian girlfriend, she said, I did MMA at the time. She said, I don't know why you do MMA, but I like how you are afterwards. And
Mm,
she found me very attractive when I felt confident in myself. I walked a certain way.
sure.
And I don't know anyone who comes out the gym feeling worse. And in terms of your own confidence, my experience, that's what people mostly find attractive. Plus, if you were to say, I don't find strong, healthy people attractive, I find weak, unhealthy people attractive, which of those is more sick? To
That's a
me,
weird
that's a
flex,
stranger thing to say, right? That's a stranger fetish to say. I
for
find
sure.
unhealthy people attractive.
For sure. I think a lot of people come at the opposing side for aesthetic involvement with very good intentions. They think that it shouldn't matter how you look for the assessment of you as a value having deeply important human being. And they're completely right about that. That's not what you're addressing. But your value laden humanity has to reside in a physical vessel. Do you want that vessel to be healthier? Do you want that vessel to be a vessel that you think at least looks cool? So, for example, if I give you a new kind of car, let's say it's the 2040s, it's a nanotech car. So you just talk to it and you go, I want you to look like the following kind of car today. And it just turns into whatever kind of car you want it to look like. It is very possible to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. One, a person's vehicular look does not in any deep way communicate any kind of value or lack thereof to the world. Who cares what kind of car you're in? You're a human being. I don't care if you step out of a Rolls Royce like I do every single day that I arrive to the office by helicopter.
Got a
It's a
Lambo
helicopter Rolls
helicopter
Royce.
now. A Lambo helicopter. Good.
Yes, made by Rolls Royce. We wanted to make it so inefficient so that I could spend more money on it so I can complain to my other rich friends how much money I'm spending on it, which is the biggest flex you can do with other rich people. In any case, it doesn't matter what kind of car you drive, right, right, right. But you have this nanotech car. It costs you $1,500. It'll never break. It's super intelligent, sits in your driveway, and you can make it turn into a Lamborghini. You can make it turn into a Ford Fiesta. You can make it turn into a Formula car. Whatever outside appearance you want, is when you're driving it, that's what it's going to look like. Are you going to tell me that you assess that most people, even if they understand at a deep level, that it doesn't matter to other people what their car looks like? They're not going to try to get into a car that looks kind of cool, an aesthetic they like. Like if you tell a lady she's 45 years old and she's going shopping at the mall with a few of her children, you want her to be, hey, here's your nanotech car. She's like, why does it literally look like a dump truck? You're like, well, it doesn't matter what's on the outside, right? She's like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But can I just have like a Lincoln MKZ or just a nice car? I don't want to be ostentatious. Something nice to take me places that people know, oh, there's a 45-year-old woman in there. Something that matches my vibe. And your vibe might change. So just the same way we see that car as like an expression of kind of whatever you're feeling, your physique is also an expression of that. You have to be inside a car to go places with a car. You have to be inside your body to go anywhere. And you might as well have a body that not necessarily, like myself, you're infatuated with constantly making progress on this little 45-year-long art project, but at the very least, a body you're like, all right, I could go to a party like this, versus one where you're like, I really just wish I had a different body. That's what we're addressing here with aesthetics.
Yeah, that conversation goes as far back as Plato's Symposium. So, we're probably not breaking new ground with that in terms of
Sure.
both of those things are real. Slightly edgier then. Does an athletic body, which in the modern context of the availability of ultra processed foods and very tasty foods, does that say something about a person in terms of their values, their ethics? I mean, it says they've got their ass to the gym. It says that they've
It doesn't
probably,
say that.
no, it could just be
No,
genetics. It could just be that.
absolutely. Yeah. This is something that people in Europe have trouble contextualizing because they don't live around African Americans. Some fraction of African Americans, or my joke about that is they're born perfect and they're just like evolve into natural competitive bodybuilder physiques. We were actually working with a gentleman recently who had been involved just in kind of recreational working out. He had been a former gymnast, and it took him one show prep to win his natural pro card. It just took him 14 weeks to become a professional bodybuilder. Recreationally, he just did it because he's black and because that's how it works. And so, like, sometimes, here's another example. You look at a girl and you're like, wow, she's kind of thin. She's kind of decently well muscled. She's free in the wind. Awesome. Yeah, she's just 22. And her parents were also tall, skinny people. And so, value judging people based on their appearance is a bit of a perilous task. You could absolutely be correct because on the other side, if someone is 48 years old and they have a chiseled physique and you have a reason to believe they didn't just wake up like this, you might infer that, this might be a person who at least cares about their body. And some people do that a lot. I like to reserve judgment until I know who I'm talking to because I've made that mistake too many times of like, oh, you care. They're like, nope, I just live life like this. And you're like, okay, I've learned nothing from you. But the opposite is also true. If you are grotesquely obese, in a way that looks like it's wildly inconveniencing even yourself, we may have reason to believe that you are not as health and appearance conscious as other people. But we could also be wrong on that because some people are fighting hunger signaling that nobody outside of maybe a Navy SEAL could fight off. And even after a few months of fighting that, the Navy SEAL would crack. Hunger is one of the most primary formative drives any animal has. And if your hunger signaling is genetically dialed up, you can't win that fight. You won't. Your biology is designed for you not to win it because you would starve to death if you had a really good gene for that sort of thing. And so we can infer somewhat about a person's kind of morality in relation to how they caretake their body and thus other things. To put it more technically, there is absolutely a correlation between physique and conscientiousness. That's what we're trying to infer. This is a conscientious person. This is somebody who takes care of their stuff and their body's a part of their stuff versus people who are like, they throw their things in the room, they eat whatever. There's definitely a correlation there, but there are enough ways for that correlation not to imply causation that I personally don't do that. And I've met too many amazing, talented willpower just over the top people that do not occupy a body that looks like they give a shit about it, but they are insanely high level people that produce mega value everywhere and they're kind and gentle and awesome. And so I really don't like to assume that that whole like, and I know it's fashionable to do the whole thing of like, the Plato shit where it's like, oh, like, your body, it's important to allow your body to become what it's supposed to become to really feel it. That's all dope. But in the modern context, I reserve moral judgment for moral action. Like if I do a business deal with you and you fuck me in the ass, I don't give a fuck what your body looks like. You're a piece of shit. If you're a coworker of mine and you're morbidly obese and you always reply on time with emails and give me super detailed instructions for my next work task, you're amazing. I love you. Welcome to our society. I will never judge you a second about how your body looks.
If the ass fucking was part of the business deal, though
It
that
depends on if it's good ass fucking or
there'll
not.
be
I mean,
the
there are levels to
absolutely
this.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't just settle
yeah.
for any ass fucking.
And
My
just,
God.
I mean, I have a friend, for example, who's fairly disabled and she has to be on a Zempic because, just this physical situation she's in. So zero judgment on her. I lived with the circus in Ethiopia for a while, and that will give you body image issues just
Yes.
because of the genetics there in
Yep.
Ethiopia, but also because the environment there. There was almost no, it's all kind of regular natural food there.
Sure.
So this kind of environmental factors too. I'm interested primarily now in the psychology of exercise. And I've been looking up the evidence base on this. And I always subjectively went, yeah, I feel good when I come out of the gym. And the more people I talk to, it seems like less friends who went to the gym were depressed and stuff like that. I've been astounded by how robust the evidence base actually is in terms of psychological impact of strength training in particular. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
really improved in the last since 5 years before when I had a look at it. What's your sense on resistance training, strength training? psychological impact?
There are many ways in which resistance training can improve your psychological situation. Probably the fundamental way that explains most of the variance for people who get a big psychological boost from injecting weight training into their lives is I am inclined more and more to believe, as I see more and more of the data, that humans have a certain level of physical problems we're evolved to deal with in our world. And thus, if you use your body physically in difficult ways to solve problems, you check that box of, I used up my body today. I pushed my body to its limits. If you don't use up that box, the excess psychological energy, I used to call it, I sometimes do psychic energy, not to confuse it with woo-woo pretend people who think they can predict the future, but kind of your internal psychodynamic amount of energy you have. If you don't burn that off, for lack of a better term, pushing your body to its limits, you are highly likely to experience that energy doing not so great things in your mind, specifically causing a lot of anxiety, potentially even some depression as well. Specifically, anxiety is very likely caused by us just not having the kind of physical demanding problem set imposed to us that we used to. This was a thing that was a transition from our hunter-gatherer existence, in which having to use your body to survive was just a constant, and thus you never had to have this empty well where it used to be you got to use your body. And through much of the industrial revolutions that have come before, humans still use their bodies. You know, you go do an 8-hour day at a factory, you come back, you don't have anxiety because you're too tired in your body, and you've been secreting all these hormones that are, you know, after the antecedent to the stress response or concomitant with the stress response. And those hormones, a lot of them make you feel damn good after you've secreted them all day long. You feel spent, and spent in the best way possible. You've spent your nervous energy on these demanding physical tasks. That's why we see levels of anxiety all the way up through industrialization are quite low. More recently, in the last several decades, we've been seeing a really skyrocketing anxiety, and that comes from sort of two things. One is we're just no longer challenged in any way in our societies. You can coast along and do whatever you want, no problem. The second is there's not a lot of physical demand. And because humans are hardwired to have that physical demand, if you take it away, the extra energy you have mentally is going to go and make you anxious. And if you lift hard or train hard or do yoga hard or do MMA hard, it seems to siphon that off, put it to good use, and then you just feel much better. Now, that's just one of the types of ways in which exercise is good for you psychologically. Another one is it's a time that you spend in a near meditative state. You're by yourself, at the very least, during the set when you're getting close to failure and your biceps really burn, you are in a very deep philosophical sense by yourself.
It's
Nobody can help you there.
forced mindfulness at that point as well,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes, absolutely. So you get into a flow state, you get into a mindfulness state. The world winnows down to one thing. And another reason potentially why we're so many of us are in some combination of depression, anxiety, or meaninglessness in this world today is there are a lot of vectors for your attention in the world, which is a wonderful and beautiful thing. If you need to be entertained, you just open up your social media and the entertainment never comes to an end. But there's so many things. There's YouTube videos, there's texts, there's people sending you DMs, there's stuff in your real world. And it's a lot of stuff, and it's kind of strains your attention span sometimes. But getting a time where everything funnels into one point seems to be a little bit therapeutic for a lot of people. A lot of people get this sort of high, for lack of a better term, out of deep work. Just typing in front of your computer for 3 hours on a meaningful project also checks that box. But that combination of physical effort and focus and time spent by yourself seems to be a really, really awesome thing. Another reason potentially why people experience a lot of beneficial psychological stuff from things like resistance training is the idea, sort of twofold reinforcing ideas, that it's something you own. It's a process you're in charge of. It's just between you and your body. And in so many aspects of this world, we're not in charge. Your boss tells you what to do. Your wife tells you what to do. Your kids yell at you. Your dog even ignores you, but you control fully your body and your intent and your program when you're lifting. And on top of that, you layer progression. Not only am I in charge of this system, this process, but I regularly get to experience gains. So, like we have the RP hypertrophy app through which people do their training, and it auto programs progression for you. It mini challenges you by yourself. So after a few weeks of training, you get to look back and go, oh my God, like I'm getting better at this. And the ability to get better at something that's meaningful to you and something that's yours and yours alone leaves you with a sense of deep value creation that you've been doing. Someone's like, do you want to go work out? And you go, I don't call it working out. And they're like, okay, what do you call it? You're like, I call it training. I'm here for a reason. I'm here to make progress. Working out almost has, and I don't need to be too pedantic on the terminology here. They're largely reflexive terms, but working out is kind of just letting off some steam, right? Go in, lift some weights, do some stuff. But if you have a plan and a program and a goal, you're training for something. And training can give you some deeper meaning and a purpose. And people like directionality. And the human psychology likes directionality. It likes, I'm going from here to there. And it's like playing Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega Genesis. You collect a ton of gold coins on the way. And so not only are you loving the process itself, because pushing yourself really hard, challenging yourself, is also, I suppose, point number 4, really affects your ego positively. It's a reverent process. It's a humbling process. You're not as capable as you thought you were because you tried to get 12 reps on curls, but you only got 11. It's a good thing for you. It's like getting beat up in jiu-jitsu or MMA. It humbles you in the best possible way. It doesn't tell you you're worse. It tells you you're made of physical parts that can be pushed to failure. So don't take yourself too seriously ever. That situation
Slow
combined with
down a little bit. This is great stuff, and
oh, sorry.
you're hitting it at Israeli speed. It's the idea of locus of control, right? The idea that
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm in control of this. My girlfriend, for example, started going to the gym just a few weeks ago, and she's already adding weight to the bar, and she loves it.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
free, and there's a direct feedback loop between the effort you put in and the result you get out, assuming you're training relatively intelligently, eating relatively intelligently, sleeping.
Some dependable connection between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, very dependable in a way that often there isn't in life. And that
Yes.
seems to give people this sense of empowerment because there's a fairness to it. Like you could be trying very hard on other things and not get nearly the same dependability of outcome. That feels very satisfying to people somehow.
Yeah, it really does. And it could be something that comports with the rest of your life, where typically you've also observed it occurs, and then it folds right into your own understanding of how things work. On the other end, it could be an oasis for you where everything else really isn't dependable. You go to work, you do your job well. Sometimes your boss likes it, sometimes he doesn't. Who the hell knows what's going on? Your children sort of listen to you, sort of don't. But in the weight room, everything's very well controlled and you're in charge and you can have that dependability. And I've heard this from lots of people. Working out to them is their time to let all of their cares about the world float away. And they just do this one simple thing and they do it well. And then when they come back to the world, because they took a break from the chaos energy of, oh my God, what do I do next? How do I optimize next? What do I do? Blah, 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 blah. They come back to it and another point that's very good, you get straight up chemically high from working out.
Yep.
When you make yourself go into physical pain, your body shoots out endorphins and stuff. And it's just like a quarter of the way towards like, 2 oxycodones worth of high. And that's a meaningful thing. So now you're in that brain state afterwards. Let's say you're showering after your workout. Not only did you kick off a ton of psychic energy and you're no longer anxious for that reason, you're even less anxious because you're in that post-workout high mode. And also you've had a lot of time to focus in on your own space and where you made progress dependably in that space. You come back to the rest of your life with that attitude. And so now you're calm, you're happy, you have practiced a system of execution which leads to dependable progress. You've organized it. And now you go to the rest of your life, whatever you have that next thing to do that day, and you go, well, things aren't that bad. Let me organize this next part of my life and do a good job here too. Let me make this next thing kind of a little bit more like working out. And then all of a sudden you bring that calm and that excitement to organize a part of your life to the next thing, to the next thing, next thing. And that really can have an interesting downstream effect for some people where if they don't get their daily workout in the morning, they feel kind of just like flustered. But if they do, everything kind of follows after that, domino effect style.
Yes, so there's the locus of control stuff. There's just chemically, as someone who used to be a drug addict, it is addictive in a positive way. You know,
Oh,
there's
cool. What drugs were you addicted to?
mostly alcohol, but also amphetamines. So pre-workouts got nothing on what I used to take. But
Okay.
yeah, I still have to be a little bit careful with the pre-workout just because I'm moreish with anything. So a
Okay.
little bit restrained. But in terms of that sort of and opiate, we used to smoke some opium as well, and the kind of opiate, everything's going to be okay high.
Yeah.
There's
Oh yeah.
definitely a sort of healthier version of that. I wonder if there are potential negatives. Like, we'll come back to some more positives, but let's do a few negatives. Like, I have a deload week next week, a concept I learned from Dr. Mike Israetel. I'm not looking forward to it because I get such a psychological benefit from having that break, that enforced mindfulness where I don't think about all the other stresses in my life. I am chemically used to it, training 5 times a week. And the idea of a 7-day full break to me shows there's a certain degree of dependency. Now, that might be personal. I have an addictive personality, I believe, but I've heard other gym bros kind of make lots of jokes about that. And I wake
Mhm.
up in the morning and the girlfriend will be like, is it a happy day where you get to go to the gym or a sad day where you don't, Mark? Like, she's
Mhm.
already teasing me for it. So do you think sort of an addictive aspect here is a potential downside?
You're addicted to a thing that is in almost every way healthier for you. So it's a very contextual understanding in which it would be a downside. You're already addicted to a ton of stuff. Addiction is a default, it's not an exception. You're addicted to air, you're addicted to water, you're addicted to food, you're addicted to physical touch, you're addicted to sleep at night. And addicting yourself to a workout is sweet. If you were addicting yourself to something that was self-destructive, have a conversation about how that's bad. Addiction to something that is not self-destruction is typically called a passion. And passion is every bit of addiction, except the outcome is good. If every time you did heroin, your life got incrementally better, why the hell would you ever stop doing heroin? And anyone who told you to stop doing
Yeah.
it would have been an insane person who just didn't understand what heroin was doing for you. The problem is heroin destroys your life. So, in technical sense, we could call it addiction, but your addiction is a human universal. Fundamentally, it's a good thing because it keeps you doing the stuff you need to do. Working out's what you need to do, so that's all good. It is a little bit of a pain point when you have to pull away from it on purpose, strategically, to let your body recover. Though I will say it's much easier to do when you've pushed yourself substantially in the gym over the weeks and weeks and weeks. And maybe you deal it every fourth week, but maybe you should deal it every sixth or every eighth. The week before you deal it, which is an intentionally much easier week of training to let your body recover for the several months of training ahead, the week before you deload, you should be pushing yourself so hard on top of already having accumulated lots of fatigue that psychologically, one of the dependable aspects of what's called overreaching, doing a bit more than your body can recover from at any given time, one of the most dependable aspects of overreaching is a desire to no longer want to work out. We call that the desire to train. It falls so substantially. You love going to the gym. Now you're like thinking about your workout tomorrow, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
I gotta lift weights. Oh my God, I feel so beat up and so broken. I feel checked out. Well, listen, then the thing you feel like doing is taking a break. And that's great. By the end of that week of break or easier training, your fatigue has fallen, your desire to train has skyrocketed back up. Not only is that part of the design of periodization of like, oh, good, you're going to need that for the next 4 to 6 weeks of pushing it hard, but also it completely obviates the problem of feeling like doing something and then you actually have to do something opposite. So for many people, I would say if they're pretty addicted to working out and they don't want to deload, fuck it, don't deload, keep training. Increase the volume a little bit, push yourself close to failure. If your performance starts to decline, for about half a week or a week, you will also, in almost all cases, concomitantly feel the experience of like, oh my God, like, I used to love going to the gym, getting a pump. Now I'm like, I don't know, even warming up sounds like I just don't want to be there. Amazing. Now it's deload time. You do 3 or 4 days or 5 or 6 or 7 days of that, you're going to be frothing at the mouth, just biting at barbells and dumbbells, pushing old people out of the way at the grocery store, typical human behavior. And then you're ready to go be re-civilized again in a gym. So I would say that, yes, it's a bit of a concern if you can never put the sword down, but that usually just means you're not swinging the sword at enough monsters hard enough.
Got it. For listeners, Dr. Mike's insights on inspiration versus motivation versus passion, that actually made me a better life coach. I'd look up
Oh,
his
no
video.
way. That's so great.
Yeah, very, very useful distinctions around that. So I'd point listeners to that. Also, if listeners are going to are asking, when are you going to get to the stuff about fitness? I'd say go to Renaissance Periodization or go to Chris Williamson. There's some great podcasts with you.
Sure.
Oh,
Well, we have a YouTube
on
channel.
exercise.
Our sounds creation on YouTube, AR Drink, just Dr. Mike on YouTube, and we have a whole channel, over 2 million subs. We put out 5 videos a week, all about how to train and eat better and all this other stuff. We have tons of basic videos that are archived in our playlists, going through like fundamentals of how to train for muscle growth, how to train for fat loss, how to diet for fat loss. You want to learn stuff from me that's specific to like setting up a program, troubleshooting your program. We have more videos on there than a reasonable person can watch in a reasonable amount of time, assuming they're gainfully employed.
Yeah, I think I've spent about the amount of time I spent on my undergraduate degree. So I don't want to repeat any of that. So
There you
let's
go.
some of the more psychological stuff again. So do
Sure.
you think there are any psychological negatives? I mean, not in terms of I've heard you talk about enhanced substances and things like that, but just in terms of normal gym going, because there's so many positives in terms of anxiety and depression, and people
Yeah.
can Google it. Do you think there are any negatives if we take out addiction as one?
Yeah, I can think of a few. So you can get really, really into gym life and gym culture and start training really, really hard. And you arrive at your, wow, I'm spent in a really meaningful, deep way state, like after your workout. And there you stay until you have enough energy again the next day. And you have nothing left to give the rest of your life. Now, that typically doesn't happen unless you're trying to train to be a professional at something. But if you get sufficiently addicted to training, you just want more and more and more of it. And then after a while, it kind of swallows up a lot of your life. It can happen in the way in which I just described, where you're like putting so much into your workouts and they're so crazy that you're like kind of tuned out for a lot of the other important things that you're supposed to be attending to. A lot of times that's a good thing. Sometimes that's not an ideal thing. The other problem with that is if you start to work out more and more because you like it more and more, what you end up doing is pushing out other elements of your life on a strict time perspective, scheduling wise. Like you used to hang out with your kids more, you used to do more with your spouse, you used to do more hiking on the weekends, but now you're in that gym fucking moving shit up and down and concentric circles. And so, is that your best place to be? That's a question you can answer, but you can honestly say, look, like, do I need to be here? Yes, my soul tells me I need to be here. Is there a way I could get like a little bit less gym time so I can get back to doing some of the things that used to make me a complete whole person? Things that my friends and my own other parts of my soul tell me like I need to come back to? Yeah, you can do that. I've tilted that on purpose for many, many lengths of time. I've dieted in such a way that prevents me from going out to eat for months on end. And that does cost a little bit on the life thing. Actually, to that point, there's a third concern here. Fitness might not end with working out. Yes, you're working out more, and that's physically taking up another half hour, 5 days a week that you used to spend doing other cool shit. But you might start to buy into more of the lifestyle. You notice that working out is a part of the equation, but a huge part is eating, and a huge part is resting, and a huge part is fatigue management. So now when your friends are like, hey, like we're going to this really cool music festival, you got a camp. When you're there, it's amazing. All your favorite bands are there. And you're like, camping, so I can't train with weights during those 3 days. Sleep quality and quantity is going to be way lower because we're all going to be high on drugs and running around. And, nobody gets good sleep. Well, I don't want to say nobody. I sure shit don't get good sleep in a tent. Many people don't. Certainly lower quality than at your room with all of your fans blowing on you and your dark curtains and everything. And, I don't, I don't want to go to this music festival. And now, because you are doing this to your life, your fitness is affecting you even when you're not in workouts. Another one is food. There are so many beautiful experiences humans can have with food if most of the time they attend to good nutrition, but sometimes they just fucking YOLO and eat some goddamn donuts and be a fucking human being for once. It's a beautiful thing you can do with friends, with family. It's amazing for the soul. Just a food experience by itself, taste experience, is this wonderful thing that we have availed to us. Like people don't give you Tokyo nightlife recommendations without saying like where are you going to get amazing like sushi
Yeah, yeah.
spots
Part
or
of life.
something. And if you excise that out of your life and replace it with protein powders and pre-measured food amounts, like you're taking something away from yourself that approximately you may think is worth it, but ultimately you may reflect back and go, man, I wish I would have fucking done some fun shit more often. So those are some things to be aware of. So it's less of like negative proximate psychological downside of fitness and more
Mhm.
like fitness is this amazing thing for you in a bunch of ways. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing in some contexts, and some people absolutely push it too far. I have many, many times.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have Irish family, Jewish teachers, and Italian girlfriends. So if I'm dieting so hard I can't receive food as love, I've got a big problem
Big
culturally.
problem. Huge.
That's. I knew one Taekwondo teacher who said, He said, I work out 12 hours a day. I'm like, well, for what? You're missing half of your life if you're training 12 hours a day. Like to me, that seemed off. And there's a study I read years ago on what's called the compensatory function, saying that some people get really into martial arts, they get the black belt, and it gives them an achievement which compensates for lack of achievement elsewhere. Now, I find it far more common that people are learning something which is transferable and actually achieve more elsewhere. But I've definitely met those people, particularly in, say, the Aikido world, where there's a kind of compensatory mechanism happening. And I can imagine that could happen in the gym as well.
That's a very good point. I haven't given a ton of thought to that. It doesn't apply to me, I guess, which is maybe why I haven't given it a ton of thought. And to your point, I think a lot of the kinds of people that accomplish great things in a sporting or a fitness context, they're typically just people who just make a hobby out of accomplishing great things in whatever other parts of their lives. But there's a certain sense in which if you really, really like fitness, you start to leverage a lot of your time and a lot of your internal value to fitness. And you say, look at all these fitness things I've done. I'm such a good person. And that's not wrong. But maybe you could have gotten a degree in computer science during that time. Maybe you could have pushed your work effort to become a multimillionaire. Maybe you could have donated more of your time to folks in need and helped tons of folks in need. And you could have extracted a lot of deep value out of those things, but you're in the gym moving weights up and down and you extract a lot of deep value out of that. That absolutely can happen. Again, it is difficult to put that. That's if you're doing it so much, you can make a rational argument to yourself in your own head that you're exercising important other opportunities for excellence in your life. But if it's in context of I train 5 hours a week or something total, exercise is just so unbelievably beneficial on all of the things that you should be tending to your body for at least 5 hours a week in such a way because it pays these huge dividends. Something I didn't get to on the benefits because they're sort of infinite, but is worth mentioning here. There is a robust link between your physical fitness, as mostly achieved by working out in the modern world, and your cognitive abilities. In the literal sense, it makes you smarter to be more jacked and more lean and consistently having decent levels of physical activity. If you have low levels of muscle mass, high levels of body fat, not only are you predisposing yourself to insane amounts of chronic disease, which resistance training and good dieting largely inoculates you from, it's nearly panaceic, but you also end up in the situation where you are uh, literally able to do your actual cognitive job better because you're sharper. Your memory is better. Your ability to connect concepts is better. Your attention span is better. Your cognitive health, as measured by physiological parameters, is better if you are leaner and more muscular and have a high level of physical activity. And since all those three things, one of them is working out, the physical activity part, and then working out gives you the other two things, combined with good nutrition and good fatigue management, things like sleep and relaxation, you're just going to be sharper and better at your job. And I can go on a much, much longer rant than is appropriate for your podcast about the degree of return on investment for marginal increases in your cognitive ability, but I'll just say for now, they're exponential. So if you get a little bit sharper and smarter, it has a humongous effect on your product output to your children, to your spouse, and sure as shit to your job that you do for money. If you're a computer programmer and you get a little bit sharper, you do much better work, not just a little better work. And that's just going to make you better at everything in every possible respect. That being such a huge benefit of exercise, unless you're exercising so much time you can't get to computer programming, or you're exercising yourself to such levels of continued cumulative exhaustion that you're in your I don't even know what the hell it says anymore. Short of those things, and yeah, those would be a problem. Exercise is an enhancer that is difficult for us to paint a part of a human life that exercise does not make better.
Lovely. There's a false economy, isn't there, to saying you shouldn't exercise because it's a waste of time, when that time sharpens the saw you're bringing to every tree in your life.
Totally. And I wish we could get all those exercise benefits without exercising. I highly look forward to a world, I think in 5 or 10 years, more like 10 maybe, we'll be in that world. None of us will have to exercise. We will just have, through pharmacological and genetic intervention, all of the benefits of exercise. That would be amazing. But because we can't get those things yet, yeah, you're going to have to pay the cost of like an hour a day of exercise. And then it's for sure worth it. Would it be even more worth it if we could just take a pill? Oh, absolutely. But short of that pill showing up, you can't just say, well, exercise takes up too much time. Because to your point, it's like, yes, but it has a positive ROI on everything else that is more than accounting for the physical time that you do it. So if you do exercise up to 5 to 10 hours per week, in almost all cases, it's going to make you straight up better at everything else at an absolute level, accounting for the time you don't spend doing those other things.
Nice. Related, I think I've got better at thinking watching your channel, because you bring such a sort of logical framework to things. And I can see you've applied that to your YouTube and to your business and other areas. There's something you can learn about how to learn through training. That I find very interesting. And this is where I might push back a little bit against the idea if there was a pill that gave all the benefits of exercise. Because does the process of exercising not build, one, a particular perspective, and two, I would go so far as to say certain virtues are built in the gym, even if it's just the ability to tolerate doing hard things repeatedly. Like if you were to have a pill that would give you all the benefits, you wouldn't build those that logical framework and those virtues, surely.
This is really good that we're talking about this. I have a very strange take here, and by strange I mean uncharacteristic of most people who are involved in exercise, and I would actually say most people in general. I think in we can look at it from another perspective. Your body needs the challenge of exercise to stay healthy mentally and physically. And that's one of the main reasons why exercise is so good for you. If we exercise is also good for you because it allows you to be purpose driven, to encounter problems, to encounter difficulties, and surmount them. But if we could get all of those benefits from a pill without any of the challenge, we have two directions we can take in life after the era of exercise is gone. One is a direction of sloth. I don't have to work out. I'm just going to sit in front of Netflix and veg out and look at my abs every now and again and go, damn, I can just eat whatever and sit around forever and I'm just going to have a six pack. Unbelievable. And that does not promote the kind of mental growth that we would like to see typically from people, and not even in a top down, you need to be mentally growing, but in a thing they will appreciate a few months and years down the line of, thank God I was challenging myself. And oh man, that exercise pill really fucked me up. I started taking it and I just like fell off on all my other hobbies and nothing good came of it. It just rewarded the worst kind of behavior. That's absolutely a thing you can do, but you can do another thing, which is challenge yourself in a way that has nothing to do with exercise, but is more productive in other respects. For example, the meditative aspect of exercise you can get from hiking, from doing mixed martial arts, from practicing yoga, and doing all those other things that you love that give you that clarity, that focus, that time to yourself. You no longer have to do it for the purpose of gaining muscle and losing fat, which is a bit mechanical if we're being honest. Moving a bicep curl up and down, there's not a lot of rhythmic effort to it. There's not a transferable skill to the rest of the world. It's not even beautiful in a certain sense. Like I'd much rather do a dance practice for 45 minutes than fucking move a barbell up and down. One of those is just much more enthralling and lively and deep and cool to look at for other people, including yourself, skill-based in a sense that skills can get refined over years instead of over weeks or months. You're just better off on all of those metrics doing something like that. If you don't have to attend to your physical body anymore because it's as jacked and lean as it's going to get, depending on how much medication you take, then we still preserve all of those qualities. In addition to that, there is a way in which pushing through hard things makes you better and it's just good for you. But that also applies to non-physical tasks. If you really challenge yourself with intellectual work, not only do you do more intellectual work now that you don't have to take an hour out of your day to go work out, but you push yourself even harder on that intellectual work for longer. I mean, deep work session that lasts 6 hours, you come out of there reeling like, what the fuck is even up with my brain? But it's this profoundly, unbelievably amazing feeling of accomplishment, of joy, of relaxation, of knowing you've having poured into something. And during that time that you're doing deep work, you are encountering consistent, very difficult problems that you have to surmount. Otherwise, it's not really deep work, I guess. And you get all those benefits from doing that without having to physically drive to a building constructed for you to move weights up and down with your hands, move weights up and down with your hands, leave that building, drive home, and then begin the process of deep work. And exercise helps the person, it helps the individual greatly. When you're exercising, you're not really helping other people. If I'm building code for AI, or if I'm helping clean the streets of garbage, I'm actually doing something that impacts the rest of the world positively. And there's lots of challenges in the world. So to me, if we no longer have the workout challenge, then we can fill our day with other challenges, or we can fill our day with sloth. And that is a little bit of a false dichotomy, because we can always choose sloth anyway. And there's nothing special about working out that makes it an anti-sloth mechanism. As a matter of fact, it makes you physically more tired and makes you more likely to be sloth-like later after you've done working out. You work out hard, you're like, yeah, fucking Play-Doh, I love it, we're accomplishing good shit. And then you go and sleep on the couch for 2 hours because your body's like, bro, you need a break, eat this meal and go to sleep. If you no longer have working out, not only have you gained an hour a day to do more productive work, but you're now actually like have literally physically more energy with which to do those things. And so to me, there are absolutely benefits of working out, but and ones that don't come from a pill, but you can get those other benefits in even more productive ways that are not working out. And I think the number of people that have the willpower and effort to go work out, make themselves do it to get the benefits of achievement and difficulty, if you take working out from them by giving them a pill or a genetic upgrade, they're going to go find that difficulty somewhere else. The people that are trying to avoid difficulty, Mark, you don't see them in the gym. They don't go to the gym. Or if they do, they'll do it for a day and they'll fuck right off. And then they go and watch Netflix. You know, these people need working out. Yeah, good luck. Good luck talking them into it. But if they're the kinds of people that would show up to the gym anyway, they're probably the kinds of people that if you put them in front of Netflix, they'd be like, can I go do something productive? I really feel like I need to challenge myself. To me, it seems more based on the individual. And if working out isn't there to challenge you, people who want challenge will find it in millions of other places. And to finish the intellectual completeness of this thought, if we have a situation in which we have no longer any actual challenges, we live in paradise and it's mission accomplished. So until and unless there are no more problems in the world, there are always problems on which to struggle, bang against the rocks, and sharpen everything about yourself. And the good news, there are actual problems. Instead of this dumbbell is here, now it needs to be up here, now it needs to be back here, now it needs to be up here. A wildly arbitrary waste of human effort is a way you can paint working out that's not entirely wrong.
Wonderful. I want to discuss that one more with you another time, but I want to respect your time today. Maybe just a fun one to finish. What do you think you're finally going to get cancelled for when you get cancelled? What do you think is going to be the joke? Because I saw you're riding that edge like a kinky gay guy continuously. So what do you think it will be?
Jesus. Yeah, it depends on who's in charge, you know. We in the current political landscape, the left wing has been the thing that cancels people. But if you remember from history or from being alive back then, the 1980s in the United States specifically, where the right wing was canceling people. I mean, you had explicit labels on CDs. They tried to prevent Two Live Crew from like playing events and going on the radio in Florida, and actually lost a Supreme Court case because the First Amendment is like, they're like, yes, absolutely, they can sing on the radio if they want. And I was like, oh, damn it, we can't just get these mean people to go away. So it depends on who's in charge. I'll say if it's a right wing reascension in the modern world, especially the United States, probably jokes at the expense of religion is probably what's going to do me in. And if it's left wingers are in charge, something to do with race, maybe gender, is going to probably do me in. But I love racial humor. There's an endless bottomless pit in my head for racial humor at the expense and to the entertainment of all races. No one's ever exempt. Now, I don't do a lot of racial humor on the channel unless it's at the expense of either white people or Jews, sometimes Asians. If I zig and zag to the wrong group, could land very poorly.
The listeners, Mike is Jewish. That's why. Intensively Jew.
Yeah, he's not just like just exceptionally anti-Semitic. So, but I'm also that because what kind of real Jew isn't anti-Semitic at least a little bit? You know what I'm
You
saying?
know the definition of anti-Semitism:
Go on.
hating the Jews more than necessary. That's
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I
And yeah,
don't
some
completely tell
amount is
everybody.
enough.
Good. I'll tell you the thing I didn't do afterwards when we were offline that I had planned, and my girlfriend said, "Don't do that."
I love it.
So what's it like? Last fun question.
Mhm.
You've been on lots of super vitamins. A lot of them are sort of masculine hormone based. We have a lot of female listeners. Describe what it's like having your man juice turned up to 11.
Yeah, like if you turn it up a little bit, it's kind of cool. You get to experience more aggression that you perceive as empowerment. You almost completely jettison your ability to experience a normal range of neuroticism and fear. Like, if someone, if you're around people that typically intimidate you, if you're on enough androgens, your ability to be intimidated kind of falls off, and you're kind of like, I don't know, fuck them, they're just a human being. So that's kind of neat. It definitely does cool things to your body, and by that I mean it turns you more masculine, which means it gives you bigger muscles and all this other stuff, less fat. And so there's definitely some cool things about it, but unfortunately, being exceedingly male takes a toll. One is your internal instinct for aggression. Your internal instinct for honor culture and the dominance hierarchy cranks up to 11. You take people's well meant or poorly meant comments as egregious violations of your personhood, and you want that person to beg for their existence for wronging you this way. And that's not fun to always consider everything a potential for confrontation. Your brain auto assesses people as physical threats to you or dominance hierarchy situation. You see someone of reproductive age and you assess them as either someone to have sex with or not, or to intimidate physically or not. It gets real old really fast. It prevents you from being able to have kind of a community sense when you're out in the world of like, hey, these are all my people, my society friends. They're great. And most people are great. You start to see most people as like a mean dog would, like that. And that gets really old really fast. The sex drive stuff can be fun because it can radically elevate your sex drive. If you're female, it radically elevates your sex drive to a place where you probably just don't have the context to understand. No offense. If you're female and you've never been on anabolic steroids, it's difficult to comprehend how much it increases your sex drive. It does so quantitatively and qualitatively. That can be awesome until it's not, until it's just really annoying. Like you'll watch a movie that ostensibly has a script and a plot, and like there's titties on the screen, and the actress is saying something, but you're like, fucking bitch, look at her titties. That's just what your brain is telling you. You're like, what the fuck, am I in seventh grade again? But like, yes, with enough androgens, you just sex or violence. That's the only thing your brain really just tends to kind of go. Any thought you have eventually goes to either sex or violence on enough androgens. And because those are not really productive ways of thinking about most of your interactions in modern society, it's a little nuisance to have to bring your brain's attention back all the time to the things like, oh, I'm here at the store shopping for cucumbers. I'm not staring at people's titties, and I'm not staring at guys' faces to see if they'll cower when they look me in the eyes. What the fuck? And
Nice.
it's really annoying. And so there you have it. There's some of the side effects right
Worst
there.
worst day of PMT combined with the biggest ovulation you ever had, right? That's how I
Oh,
explain.
yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, Mike, I want to respect your time. Where do people find you online? Plug the app. Where do people go?
Thank you so much. So if you go to the YouTube, RP Strength YouTube, Renaissance Periodization, if you can type that up, just Dr. Mike Muscle, you'll see my face, you'll see my head shape. Click on some videos, click through, subscribe if you like, learn some things. And if you ever want to buy any of our stuff, we have Diet Coach app, we have a hypertrophy app, apps that help you organize your diet. They'll actually coach you through a diet to lose fat, gain muscle, some combo. The hypertrophy app just organizes all of your training for you and just tells you what to do in the gym every time, including with videos that tell you exactly how to do the thing. You can just get those in the links in our description to all of our videos. So if you just go to the YouTube, everything else is, in a marketing sense, technically a funnel from there. So you'll be like Dorothy, just fall into the funnel and God knows where you'll end up.
Mike, спасибо. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Mark, thank you so much for having me, man. It's been awesome.